sound. Okay. Okay, so at first you need to check later on, you need to check the ENT platform, and there, and also the e-learning platform, because I will share the documents also in e-learning platform on the faculty. So as I said, in ENT you'll find, inshallah, you'll find the file on okay, on speech organs and a classification of speech sounds. Okay, I didn't insert them yesterday because I was a bit sick, ill. So and I was too tired. So I will do it inshallah today. Nothing happens. Okay, inshallah. So let's start. Okay. Okay, as I said, today's course is on speech organs. So let me first start by sharing my screen with you. Okay, I think it's shared. Yes, we go straight to the file. Okay, can you all see now the speech organs and speech sounds?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So, as I said, today's course is on speech organs and speech sounds, but I will start with the main speech organs, okay, that are responsible for the production of speech sounds, okay. There are some speech organs that you already know, okay, but there are others which are maybe new for you. That's question of terminology. That's it, okay. What you need to know the speech organ, what is it, and what does it do in speech production. That is, which sounds are involved, okay, while which sounds are involved in these speech organs. That is, which speech organ is responsible for which speech sound production. Okay. Okay, so I will start with one thing which is very important. Okay. Okay. So organs of speech and their functions. So I will start with this this profile of speech organs. So while talking of speech organs, I'm talking about the organs, okay, the organs that are responsible for the production of speech sound. Okay, so what are these organs? I will start with the distinction of the cavities. Okay, so you see in here, just if you follow me in here, here we can distinguish between two cavities. Okay, we have the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. Okay, the first distinction to know while talking about speech organs is the distinction between the two cavities that we have and that are responsible for the production of many speech sounds. So we can distinguish between the nasal cavity. This is the nasal cavity. It involves the nose, okay, and of course the air can go out, or the airstream can go out, okay, through the nasal cavity, like in this, that is in here. It can go in here, and then it can go, the airstream can go from the nose, can go, sorry, from the nose. And the oral cavity in here, that is the airstream coming from the lungs, and going in here through the pharynx, can go out, the airstream may go out from the oral cavity. That is, we have two cavities, the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. So why am I stating that? Why am I distinguishing between the nasal and the oral cavity? I'm distinguishing between the two because when the air stream goes from the lungs through the pharynx and through the nasal cavity, we produce what we call nasal sounds. Okay, and when the air goes from the oral cavity through the mouth, okay, here we produce what we call oral sounds. So, what's the difference between nasal and oral sounds? Nasal sounds are produced, okay, when the air stream goes from the nose or from the nasal cavity. That is, the nasal cavity is responsible for the production of nasal sounds, while the oral cavity, when the air goes from the oral mouth, orally, that is from your mouth, so here we produce what we call oral sounds. So, what are the nasal sounds in English? So, the pure nasal sounds in English are m, n, and okay, like in sing, sing, okay. So these are the pure English nasal sounds. Okay. Oral sounds are what? Like what? Like when I say p, okay, f, t, b, d, g, p, t, k. So you feel that the air stream goes from the oral cavity. So this is the first idea concerning the speech organs. Another idea which is very important is that we cannot produce sounds without breathing. If you hold your breath in here and you don't breathe, the air won't come out from your lungs. Okay? It won't come out from your lungs, which means that breathing here is of great importance in the production of speech sounds. So, and we can distinguish between the production of nasal sounds and the production of oral sounds. Nasal sounds involve the nasal cavity, while oral sounds involve the oral cavity. Okay? So, if we start now and check and consider, okay, here, let's consider in here, let's start from the outside. What are the speech organs, okay, the external speech organs, and what are the internal speech organs? That is, we start just from here, from your left. Let's start from the lips. The lips are external. So here we have the lips. We have the upper lip and lower lip. Okay, so these are the lips. If I produce, what are the sounds that are produced by the lips? Okay, can you give me any sound produced by the lips?
Sir, may I? Teacher,
Yes, yes,
put,
please.
put.
Yes. What's the sound?
Sir, may I? Teacher,
Yes,
put.
yes, put. We have the sound. We have the sound.
Yes.
We have the sound. Disactivate your microphone.
What's the sound? We're now unmuted. For example,
Yes, m.
we have the sound. We have the
Yes,
sound.
please deactivate your microphone.
Disactivate your microphone.
Okay, thank you. So I said that we have the sounds like speech sounds like p, m, okay, p and m, p. All these are produced by the lips. Okay, when we talk about the lips, we're talking about the upper lip and the lower lip. Good. Then let's go inside. So here, to know the speech organs, we're going from outside till inside. Okay. So after the lips in here, what do we have? We have the teeth. the teeth, and we have the upper teeth and the lower teeth. And of course, the teeth are very important in the production of certain speech sounds, like when I say t, 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 when I say th, 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 when I say the. So you see that the teeth, okay, they play an important role in the production of certain speech sounds because the tip of the tongue against the teeth that produces certain sounds, like as I said, t, 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 when the tip of the tongue is raised against the alveolar, that is the behind, that is just the back of the teeth, the upper, and then we have like th, when the tip of the tongue is between, okay, between the teeth, the upper and the lower. So you see, this is why I am focusing on speech organs. I just want to introduce you to the main speech organs because you will see this in details in your S4 linguistics. Okay. So I said after the teeth, just after the teeth in here. Can you see? Can you see in here? Just in here, we are orally. So we start with the lips, then we have the teeth in here, and then just right after the teeth, what do we have? We have what we call the alveolar ridge. So what is the alveolar ridge? The alveolar ridge is the hard, bony part that is just next to the teeth. Just this is the teeth here. So if you just put your finger,
Teacher,
yes, please.
like n.
Yes, you touch the tip of the tongue with the alveolar ridge. Where is the alveolar ridge? Where is the alveolar ridge? You can touch it with your finger, just next to your teeth here. You can touch it. It's the bony, hard part, just right next to the teeth. This is it. So I'm showing it here on the picture here. So it's the upper part, okay? Because when you go inside the mouth, you have the upper part of the mouth and you have the lower part of the mouth. So in the upper part of the mouth, what do we have? So let's start with the upper part. We have the teeth. Next to the teeth, we have the alveolar ridge. Just here in the upper part in here, we have what we call the hard palate. Okay, it's hard. You can touch it with your finger also. It's like a hole in here. And then after that, we have, as I said, the alveolar ridge. Then we have the hard palate. Then we have in here in the end of the mouth.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes, please.
Can you make the picture bigger because it's too small to see?
Okay, I will try.
Thank you.
Don't mention it. So you see, do you see the alveolar ridge now? Yes, it was not clear. Yes, now it's better. Thank you for raising that point. Okay, so you see in here, I'm going from the external side to the internal side. So for the internal side, external, we have the lips, the teeth, the upper and the lower. Then this part in here, it's what we call the alveolar ridge. So the alveolar ridge in here, when you raise the tip when you raise the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge, you produce certain sounds like t, 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 d, 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 and n, n. Alveolar ridge in here against the tip of the tongue, we produce t, d, n. So these sounds are called alveolars. Alveolars. Okay, alveolars means that the tip of the tongue is against the alveolar ridge. Okay, so here let's move let's move. Of course, here we're still in the oral cavity. So let's move in here, this part, just right after the alveolar ridge, go inside in the upper or the roof of the mouth. So we find what we call, we find what we call the palate. See, palate. This is the palate. It's a hard, bony part in the upper part of the mouth or in the roof of the mouth. So this is the palate. So try to pronounce the sound y, y, y. So you feel that your tongue is raised at the roof of the mouth, that is in the central part of the mouth in here, and in here the what is it? So here in the upper part you have the palate. Okay, and when the tongue is raised against the palate, so here we produce sounds like y. We call them palatals. Palatals. Okay, so here, if you go inside in here, we find in the end of the mouth, you have the tongue. This is the tongue. In the up in here, you see this one, like a fleshy, movable part, okay, organ, which is inside. When you open wide your mouth, you find what we call in here the velum. Okay, so and here we have the pharynx. Of course, if you go in the oral cavity in here, we have the tip of the tongue. Let's take the tongue. So the tongue in here, we have the tip of the tongue. This is just here, the tip. Then we have the body of the tongue, and we have the root. That is in here, the tongue. The tongue has four parts. It has the front part, in which we have the tip and the blade. You know, the blade is here. This is the blade of the tongue. So this is it. You see the picture. We have the tip, we have the blade. Then we have the front, and you have the back of the tongue. That is the root of the tongue. So here we have the pharynx. Your pharynx, of course, you can touch your pharynx. Okay, so let's see these speech organs more clearly. Okay, so here you see the nasal cavity, and here the oral cavity. Here we have the pharynx. So if we see in here, we have, as I said, we have the upper lip, the lower lip, then we have the teeth, okay, the upper and the lower. Then this is the
Sorry, teacher.
Yes, please.
Should we memorize all these names of these organs?
You're not really obliged. Okay, but you have the handouts, and you have the explanation of each organ in the handouts in the PDF file. What you need to memorize is the classification of speech sounds. That is, when I say, for example, what is a labial sound, or what is a bilabial sound. So a bilabial sound is a sound that is produced when the two lips, that is the upper and the lower lip, they get into contact. So we talk about bilips. What you should know here, which organ is responsible for a particular sound. When I say, for example, what are the nasal sounds? So you have to say, in English, we have men and nye. How are nasal sounds produced? You can say that nasal sounds are produced, okay, when the airstream goes from the nasal cavity. Oral sounds are produced when the airstream goes from the oral cavity. That's why we call them nasal versus oral sounds.
Okay, I get it now. Thank you very much.
That is, you should always relate a speech organ to the sound. I'm not here to do science. I'm here to see what are the sounds responsible for certain sound production. For example, if I take the alveolar ridge, What are the sounds that are produced in here when using the alveolar ridge? When I say t,
teacher canal.
yes, please.
T.
Yes,
D.
good. Yes, good. S and n. Okay, so here, why? Because you raise the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge. Okay, so here, when you raise it against the alveolar ridge, we produce what we call alveolars. Okay, then once going back in here to the hard palate, we have a sound that is produced when raising the tongue against the roof of the mouth. And here we have yeah sound. Yeah, yeah. Try to pronounce it. You feel the blade, and you feel like the tongue is raised against the hard palate. We call it a palatal. Why? Because the tongue is raised against the palate. Okay. So here, as I said, we have the hard palate, and we have here this part at the root of the mouth. We have this part which is what we call the soft palate. So we have hard palate, which is a bony part, and we have a soft palate, which we also refer to as velum. That is, you can touch it. You can touch it. Okay, you can touch it, but it's back in the mouth. Soft palate in here. Then we have also what we call uvula in here. Uvula, you can just open your mouth and you see your uvula. Sometimes when you want to provoke a vomiting and you want to vomit, you just touch the uvula. This is the uvula. You just touch it and you can vomit. So for the larynx, that's clear. You don't need the epiglottis. What you need to know is that we have pharynx, and we have some pharyngeals or some sounds which are produced from the pharynx, like you feel just the airstream going out. Okay. Okay, I will let's try to do that. Who can remember? Yes, sir. Yes. Who can remember?
I can remember.
Yes, let's start with this one. This one. Okay.
The lips, the
Yes.
upper lips and the lower lips.
Yes, our upper lip, lower lip. Good. Next, here we have the
teeth.
The lower teeth and
okay.
the upper teeth.
Okay, good. Then we have what we call in here.
Alveolar ridge.
Good, alveolar ridge. Then we have in here, what do we have?
The hard palate.
Hard
The hard
palate.
palate.
Then
Yes.
the second one is the
Palate.
soft palate.
Soft palate.
And yes, and here the last one, the
Velum.
fleshy, the velum, or the uvula, the uvula, the velum, the uvula. This one in here, this one is the uvula. While in here we have the soft palate. The soft palate is also referred to as velum. Okay. Then we have the pharynx. That's it. Okay. So you see this, I will send you this and you can do it as an exercise. Okay, this is just a general picture of the relevant speech organs, starting from the external part to the internal. Okay. So you see, this is it, the same case. Now, this is another profile. We distinguish the nasal cavity from the oral cavity. And of course, we have the lips, we have the tongue, we have the tip of the tongue, we have the blade of the tongue, we have the front of the tongue, and the back of the tongue. You have all definitions are found in your PDF files. Don't worry about that. Then we have the soft palate, and also called velum. Okay, for this here, it is too scientific. You don't need it. Okay, but what is important, we have the teeth, the tongue, the lip, and the nasal cavity, oral cavity, hard palate, and soft palate. And here, of course, we have the pharynx. So let's see now the oral cavity. Okay, so of course I won't go into details here because it is too scientific. What you need to know from this oral cavity is that the airstream goes out from the mouth. That's why we say oral cavity. So what you need to know from all these terms, don't worry about that. You need to know just the upper lip and the lower lip, the upper teeth and the lower teeth. Okay, you need to know the alveolar ridge in here. So you see the alveolar ridge. Then this is in the central. We have the hard palate. This is in here the soft palate, and the fleshy moving part in here back at the root of the mouth is what we call uvula. And you need to know the tongue. So what do we have in the tongue? We have the blade and we have the tip, the blade and the back. This is what you should know in the oral cavity. Don't worry about the others. So here, this is too scientific. So now if we see the tongue, just the tongue, and the different names of the tongue. So in here we have the tip of the tongue. You see it? Please activate your microphones, please. As I said here, we have here the structure of the tongue, and we have the tongue has different parts, and each part is responsible for the production of certain speech sounds. So, for example, here we have the tip of the tongue, we have the blade, we have the front and the back. This is the external part, and this is the internal part. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so these are the different parts. So if we raise the tongue against the alveolar ridge, we can produce t, d, n. Okay, see, the tip is responsible for the production of certain speech sounds. If we raise the blade of the tongue, like here, we raise it against the hard palate, we can produce like sounds like y, sh, j. Okay. If we raise, for example, the back of the tongue against here the velum or against the upper part of the mouth, so here we can produce certain back sounds. Okay, like when I say k, 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 g, g, so you see, these are back consonants. Shh, please. Deactivate your microphones. Thank you. So you see in here, this is the tongue. So we have the tip, we have the blade, and we have the front and the back of the tongue. So here I'm showing you the speech organs, and at the same time, what we call the sound that is produced. So here, what do we have here? The tongue is here. The tip of the tongue is elevated or raised against the alveolar ridge. So whenever the tip of the tongue raises against the alveolar ridge, it produces what we call alveolar sound. An alveolar sound is a sound that is produced, okay, by the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge. Okay, what are the alveolars?
Professor, sorry
Yes.
for interrupting. Like the sound L, we
Yes.
use the
Yes.
tongue.
Good. So what are the y sound? L sound is an alveolar sound. Why? Because we raise the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge. So we call it alveolar sound. So here we can classify certain sounds as alveolars. What are the alveolars or alveolar sounds? Are sounds that are produced while the tip of the tongue is raised against the alveolar ridge. So in English, we have certain alveolars like L, L, N, T, D. Okay? So here, these are r, 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 r. Okay, these are alveolar sounds. Do you understand? My aim here is not to go
Teacher,
into. Yes, please.
sorry. Is the R is an alveolar sound? R. R.
R, in
Yeah.
English, we have
An
three.
alveolar.
Okay, if we talk about the R or R sound in English we have three types of R. We have the alveolar R, 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 in which you raise the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge, and we have what we call the retroflex. This is the American one. Like when we say R, 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 you roll your tongue, okay, inside your mouth. Like when you say R, 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 we call it retroflex. Okay, this is American. When I say, for example, far, far, storm, storm. This is a retroflex. A retroflex is produced when you curl your tongue, okay, inside your mouth, okay, in the central part of the mouth. So this is another type of R. We have the alveolar R, 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 that is the simple one, R, standard, R, and we have the retroflex that characterizes the American accent. And we have another type of R, of R sound, that we call flapped R or tapped R. Like when you focus on the R, when you say you read, you write, this characterizes this R. R sound characterizes the Irish accent. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, when they say, for example, you read and you write, exercise. This is another type of R, okay? Which means we have three types of R in English: the flapped one or tapped one, the retroflex, and the alveolar one. This alveolar one, you raise your tongue, R, 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 the R, read. You feel that the alveolar ridge is involved. So this is my aim in here, is to show you the kind, is to classify the sounds according to their place of articulation or according to their place of production. So here you see the position of the tongue against the alveolar ridge. So we can in here produce what we call in English and what we classify as alveolars. So alveolars in English are t, d, n, s, okay, and R at the same time, the standard one. Let's move now to another position of this other speech organs and which sounds are produced. So here, what's the position in here? Yes, sir?
The tongue is against the upper teeth.
Yes, sir. So we see in here that we have the tip of the tongue is in between the teeth, okay?
Yeah.
So, and the sounds that are produced then here are called interdentals or dentals in general, okay?
Because the sound is th or d.
Yes, good.
Like the sound th, I guess.
Yes, good. Yes, good. So here, when I say like th, when I say like the, so I disactivate your microphone, please. Disactivate your microphone. Yeah, thank you. So I said that when the tip of the tongue is in between the teeth, okay? So in here we can produce what we call dental sounds, dental or interdentals. Interdentals are like th and the. So th and the in English are classified as interdentals. Interdentals, that is you use the teeth and the tongue is in between. Okay, so we call them dentals or interdentals. Okay. So here, what's this position? And what's the sounds? What are the sounds that are produced?
We can produce the sounds z and th.
Yes, good. Okay, deactivate your microphone. Thank you. So here we have certain sounds that are produced by the lips, okay, and by the teeth, involving the tongue. When I pronounce, sorry, not involving the tongue, but involving the teeth and the lips. So when I pronounce v, f, okay, you see in here that the lips are involved in the production of v, 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 that is the upper teeth and the lower lip, v, f, the upper teeth and the lower lip. So when they get into contact, okay, that is the upper teeth and the lower lip, okay, or the teeth and the lips. So here we produce what we call labiodentals. What does it mean, labio? Labio means involving the lips. Dental means involving the teeth. So the labiodentals in English are essentially f and v. Okay, f and v. F is a voiceless sound, and its counterpart is v, which is a voice. Okay, so whenever we talk about speech organs in general, okay, we are to know the speech organs just to know the classification of sounds in terms of place of articulation, okay, how they are produced, yeah, and the manner, the way they are produced. This is very important. For this, you need to know first the distinction between nasal and oral sounds. Okay? Then you need to know the distinction between voiced and voiceless sounds. Okay, because each speech organ plays an important role in the production of speech sounds. Okay, so labiodentals like f and v because f, you have the upper teeth against the lower lip, and v the same case. But the difference between f and v is that f is a voiceless sound. Okay, it doesn't involve any vibration of the vocal cords that is in here in the pharynx. Okay, in the larynx, sorry. So, and v, when you touch in here, v, you feel the vibration. So it's voiced. Okay. So what's this position in here? What do we have in here? So we have, what's the position? What can you see in here? Yes. Yes. Yes, can you hear me? What is the position?
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
The tongue touch the top of mouth.
Yes, so here we have, this is the tongue in here. It touches the roof, okay, or the upper part, the hard part of the mouth, which is in the upper part. So when it touches in here, this is what we call the hard palate. Just right on your right, you have the soft palate, which is movable part. Then we have the uvula. So here, when the tongue is elevated against the hard palate, we produce what we call palatal sounds according to the hard palate. So palatals are sounds produced when the tongue is raised against the hard palate. So what is the palatal? The only pure palatal, the only true palatal in English. What is it?
G? G?
No, not G. We call it yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, I know. So this is yeah. Yeah is the pure palatal in English. So it's pure palatal. You may say, no, teacher, we have other sounds like j, like sh. Are they palatal? Okay, but when you pronounce yeah, you feel completely that the that the blade of the tongue is against the hard palate. So that's why I say that it is a palatal. While when you pronounce the sounds, for example, sh and j and j and ch. So when you pronounce these sounds, and especially sh and j, what do you feel? You feel that even the alveolar ridge is involved, not just the hard palate. Okay, the alveolar ridge is involved. Sh, j, like the air goes from and involves the two organs of speech. That's why sh and j, we call them palato alveolars or alveopalatars. Okay, we call them palato alveolars. That is because they involve both the hard palate and the alveolar ridge. Okay, so we call them palato alveolars or post alveolars. Okay, or that depends on books, or alveopalatals, but you just keep palato alveolars. Okay, no problem, or alveopalatal. It depends, or just keep post alveolars. What is important is that in the production of sh and sh, they involve both the alveolar ridge and the palatals. Okay, so for me, I consider them as palatal alveolars. Okay, so palatal alveolars, that is the involved airstream is in between the alveolar ridge and the hard palate. So the only palatal in English is y sound. Okay, palatal and alveolar. So this is it. So you see the position of the tongue in here while producing the palatal alveolars, like sh and j. You feel that the alveolar ridge is involved as well as the palatal. The hard palates, both are involved. So that's why we call them palatal alveolar or palato alveolar. So palatal means involving the hard palate. Alveolar means that they involve the alveolar ridge. So what are the palato alveolars in English? The palato alveolars in English are namely like sh and j. Okay, so and also j, and ch. Okay. Yes, deactivate your microphones, please. Thank you. So you see the positioning here? Palato alveolars, sounds involving both the alveolars and the hard palate. We call them palato alveolars or alveopalatals, no problem. Now, if you go back, you see here, what is in red here is the tongue. So when the tongue is raised against what we call, so you see in here, this is the alveolar ridge. Next to it, we have the hard palate, responsible for palatals, but next to it, at the roots of the mouth in here, inside at the back, we have what we call the soft palate. Soft palate, or we also call it velum. So when the tongue, what is in red is the tongue. When the back of the tongue, you see, this is the tip, this is the blade, this is the front, this is the back of the tongue. When the back of the tongue is raised against the velum or against the soft palate, we produce what we call velar sounds. So what are the velar sounds in English?
Ch and G.
Good. So we have a g. You see, when you pronounce g, you feel the back of the tongue like this in here against the velum or the soft palate. Let's call it now the velum because it's the same. Soft palate is the velum.
Professor,
Then we
what
produce,
about k?
yes,
The sound k?
k sound is a velar sound. A g
Just like k.
is just like a g, but it's the counterpart of g. So velars in English are maybe either voiced like g, like nye, like in sing,
Yeah.
or and k. K is also
Voiceless.
voiceless velar sound. Okay, so
Clear.
in English, you always find sounds that are voiced, while their counterparts that are voiceless. Okay, for example, for bilabials like b, like m, like p. So we have b is the voice sound, p is the counterpart. For the velar sounds, we have a g is a velar, and we have a k is a velar, but one is voiced, g, and the other one is voiceless, which is k. So you see the position of the tongue. This is what is important for me, is for you to know the different speech organs responsible. That is how is the sound produced. Okay. So here we have velar sounds in English are namely k, g, and ny, which is a nasal sound. Nasal, velar, nasal. While k and g are oral, velar, but oral. That is, they go from the oral cavity. Okay. The soft palate. So here, just here, I'm showing you the soft palate, which is the velum. You see here the velum or the soft palate, but this is the hard palate. So this is what I said, that the soft palate is also called velum. It is the roof of the mouth. It separates, and here the velum separates the nasal cavity. Okay, the last part of the soft palate. You see in here at the back, what you can see in here, like you say sometimes when you want to steal halaqm, you just open your mouth and there is a fleshy moving part in here and the organ that we call uvula. When you touch it, sometimes you vomit. Okay, so this uvula in here, it separates, okay, the uvula separates the nasal cavity from the oral cavity. Okay. So, how are nasal and oral sounds produced? It is when, for example, the last part of the soft palate is called uvula. So you see the last part of, can you see it? The last part of the soft palate or of the velum is the uvula. You see in here? So this uvula in here, when it is raised, it closes the nasal cavity. So the air passes from the oral mouth and oral sounds are produced. But when the uvula is lowered, it leaves the air goes from the nasal cavity and then nasal sounds are produced. What are the nasal sounds in English? We have m, n, and ng. And when the uvula is, when it is raised, the air goes from the oral cavity and we produce certain sounds that are oral, like p, t, k, s, etc. So you see in here, so here, this is the larynx and the pharynx. In the larynx, we find what we call the vocal cords. Don't bother yourself with this one, with the other names. What is important for me in this picture in here is the vocal cords. What are the vocal cords? The vocal cords are like curtains. Okay, they make the music. When they get in touch, they vibrate, and then the sound goes and it makes the sound. Okay, so the vocal cords are very important. Okay, what do we call the vocal? Do you know the vocal cords?
Teacher,
Yes, please.
like
Yes. So in here, no. When I talk about the vocal cords, it's a speech organ that is responsible for the production of voiced and voiceless sounds. Okay. When they vibrate, it's like music. These are called vocal cords. Are also called. We call them. We call them. Shh, please deactivate your microphone. Deactivate your microphone, please. Yes, please. Deactivate your microphones. Deactivate your microphone. Okay. Yes. So I'm talking about the vocal cords. So here the vocal cords are here. This is the normal larynx. So here we have like curtains, you see, like two curtains. These two curtains, okay, may touch each other. And when they touch each other, okay, and in here they vibrate, they produce or voiced sounds. When they don't vibrate, they are just open like this, like when I say, okay, so you whisper. When you whisper, the vocal cords are open. What you see inside the vocal cords, this part, which is the opening of the vocal cords, is what we call the glottis. Okay, the glottis is the opening of the vocal cords. Okay, so so here I'm talking just about the vocal cords because the vocal cords are very important. They show you, or when they vibrate or they get into contact, they produce certain sounds that are voiced, like b, like g, like d. But when the vocal cords do not vibrate, do not get into contact, okay, and they remains just open, okay, the glottis, which is the opening of the vocal cords, then in that case, when they are just open, we can whisper when we say. So here the vocal cords are open, the glottis is opened, while when the vocal cords vibrate, they make a certain vibration, we can produce voiced sounds, like as I said, b, d, g. And while they don't vibrate, just slightly vibrate, just slightly in here, so we can produce what we call voiceless sounds. Okay, so let's move now to in here. Okay. So just briefly, I talked about in here, I talked about just briefly, I talked about the speech organs. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. I talked about the sorry. So I talked about the speech organs briefly speaking, and of course, what time is it? Do you have any question? Here we have speech
Teacher,
organ.
please,
Yes.
is the speech organs parts included in the exam?
Sorry.
Is the speech organ part included in the exam?
I don't know. I haven't decided yet about this, but it depends on whether the exam is because I have two exams. If I have an online exam and I have a presential exam, okay, that depends. Okay, because normally I prepare two exams, one that is online and the other that is presential. Okay, I haven't decided yet. Okay,
Teacher.
so
Okay.
just please before receiving your questions, just I want you to understand what is important from knowing the speech organs is to know which speech organ is responsible for the production of which sound. This is the aim. Okay, we're not to go into details through these speech organs because you'll see this later on in your S2. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, please. Do you have any questions?
Teacher, please can you inform us in case you want to include it so that we can be well prepared?
Yes, of course. You have to consider that anything that we have discussed in their lives, and you have to record it, and anything that is done with me, can be included in the exam normally.
Okay, sure.
Okay?
Okay.
Logically speaking, expected in the exam. Okay, normally we all have the same course content. Okay, we all have this. For example, for those of Professor Torabi, so Professor Torabi focuses more on phonetics, on the speech organs, on the classification of speech sounds, and so on. So for Professor Bilhaj also focuses on the English speech sounds and the phonetic transcription, etc. And me, I try to do all that is. I focus on all that is on English speech sounds, phonetic transcription, syllable division, etc. Plus, also I prepare my students, okay, to know the speech organs and to have an idea about phonetics. Okay, which is speech production, etc. That is, I'm trying. I will try all together to do this because our students should have a knowledge about these speech organs. Okay.
Okay.
Professor,
Thank you
one
so
more
much.
question.
Give us some examples. Of course, for the exam, this is not the last session. Next Saturday, I will see you, and we'll try to do the to talk about the classification of speech sounds. And I think you have, for example, here you see this file in here is on the speech organs. And here you have this. I will share this with you. Just read it and you will understand the speech organs. You have the definition, okay, of the lips. What do we mean by the lip? What do we mean by, for example, alveolar ridge? What do we mean by hard palate? So here you have 2 pages, just 2 pages on the different different speech organs and the difference between nasal and oral sounds. You see the production. This is what I have explained. Okay, in the PowerPoint, the tongue that we have here, we have the tongue. It has various. It produces various speech sounds. You see the tip, the front of the tongue. Then we have the vocal cords in here that I talked about. What are they? And when they are completed together, what do we produce? And where when they are, and you have even the sounds that are produced. Like in here, I have summarized in the PowerPoint. I have summarized just this PDF file that I will share with you. Do you understand? So. Yes.